Has Auburn versus Alabama now become the greatest rivalry in college sports?
Midweek report coming at you guys, brought to you by our friends at the Rage Room. If you're in the Opelika area, visit them at 1510 2nd Ave, Opelika, Alabama, or if you're in Birmingham, 2616 7th Avenue South. That's in downtown Birmingham. I've got a lot of pent-up rage, Ike, over Auburn women's basketball and terrible calls at the end of the game. And if I were in Birmingham like you, I could throw axes to get that rage out because they got that going on up there. Again, 2616 7th Ave, South in Birmingham, Alabama, 1510 2nd Ave in Opelika. Rage Room, title sponsors of today's show. Guys, become a member. Sign up as a patron, $5.99 a month. Ike was live from Nashville covering the Auburn-Vanderbilt game. Auburn pulled it out. Denver Jones and Chaney Johnson went nuts. And we brought you guys live coverage. You can help keep that coverage going by signing up as a member. You can also give the gift of the War Report by hitting that gifted membership button. We appreciate our community for helping us grow our Green Name Gang. This show is brought to you in part by our friends at Vintage 2298 Restaurant. You can find them at 2298 East University Drive in Auburn, Alabama. That's over by the movie theater and the Ace Hardware, former sponsors of the War Report. Again, Vintage 2298. If you're in the Auburn-Opelika area looking for some fine dining, our guy, Chef Randall Baldwin, is there serving up something nice for you here this February. And last but certainly not least, our friends at the Rogue Shop. Visit rogueshop.com and use code REPORT to get 15% off. Pain, sleep, stress, anxiety, whatever ails you in life, the Rogue Shop has something that has you covered. Richard is a longtime sponsor of the War Report. He puts a nice note in for everybody who uses that code REPORT. Again, use code REPORT for 15% off your Rogue Shop order.
Yes, indeed. Mike, we're going to start with basketball because basketball is absolutely king of the moment right now. Auburn, because I was at Vanderbilt, I didn't get a chance to react to the Auburn versus Vanderbilt game, but I was there in that awful arena once again, Memorial Gym, that has the elevated platform of a freaking court. And the coaching boxes are on the baselines, and the disproportionate amount of non-Vanderbilt fans in the building. That part I actually enjoyed because
worst behavior
fans were very, very loud and very, very obnoxious, and I loved that. And they were passing out cowboy hats before the game, and they were thinking they were going to come and upset Auburn. Took the lead at one point in time in the game, and then all of a sudden, Chaney Johnson was like, all right, that's enough of that.
Yep.
And went crazy in the second half. Mike, what are your thoughts about Auburn versus Vanderbilt as it went down from your perspective watching that on TV?
I have a new puppy, and she's got a special connection to Auburn basketball. Every time Chaney Johnson or Denver Jones scored a bucket, my dog peed in the house, Ike. All over the place. And so
that's unfortunate.
Yeah, really unfortunate.
But that was a lot of pee yesterday.
The positive part is Auburn scored a lot of points. Denver Jones coming off the worst game of his career, and he bounced back nicely. There were idiots on social media saying bench Denver Jones. I couldn't believe it. A ridiculous argument. And so him and Chaney were a combined 16 for 20 from the field. They accounted for 50%, over 50% of Auburn's total scoring in this game. 41 points combined. Auburn
13 for 26. I'm looking at Janai. Sorry. Yeah, 16 of 20. You're right.
Yeah, 16 of 20, man, from the field. Chaney only missed one shot.
Yeah, 9 of 10.
Ooh, boy, that little baby hook was working. Look, Auburn bounced back. They're the number 1 team in the country. And if you're the number 1 team in the country, this is what you got to do coming off a loss.
Yeah.
You went on the road and you dominated. If I had told you 12 days into February, Auburn would have 1 SEC loss, but it would be in Neville, you probably would have called me crazy. But they're undefeated on the road in the SEC so far this year. This is the team's best squad. The country's best squad. And I think they proved it night in and night out. There are no easy outs in the SEC this year, Ike.
No.
Vanderbilt is a tournament squad. That's it. That was a tournament squad that they beat on the road, and they got a bunch of tournament squads left on the schedule. So, my initial thoughts are this is the game that you needed. This is the game that Denver Jones needed. I'm a little concerned about Chad Baker-Mazara being in a shooting slump. He's 2 of 12 over his last couple of games. But he is still defending at a high level, and he's doing things off the ball, and he's giving them lots of energy. He's not hanging his head out there. He's playing ball. And so his head's in the game. Bruce Pearl said after the Florida game he wasn't worried about Denver Jones. I'd be interested to hear his thoughts on Chad Baker-Mazara's offensive performance as of late. Janai Broome had what would be a pedestrian game for him, and they got carried by Denver and Chaney. So it was a great game to watch. I thought Auburn did what they had to do. Road wins don't come easy in the SEC. Our guys over at 3-Man Front said, This is the deepest, best league in the country in the last 30 years.
Yeah, easily. I don't know that there's a conference that looks this good. Did you see or hear? I should say it's a tweet is a clip of it with the audio. I think it's Carl Ravage that is saying the most ridiculous statement in the world. There was a tweet initially that said this that I think was trolling, but Carl Ravage on a broadcast talked about how the SEC hasn't looked as dominant since they started conference play, going 50-50. And it's like they're playing each other. Of course, one team has to win, the other has to look like it's an absolutely ridiculous statement to make, right? But it just made me think about it. But like it's a tough league to play in. Like, and I don't know that you can find another conference that has this many top 25 teams that are legitimately top 25 teams. Like in football, sometimes you get like this inflation of SEC where it's like, okay, maybe that's not a top 25 team, but because it's the SEC and they've got a bunch of talent and they've got a bunch of 4 and 5 stars running around and a bunch of future NFL guys, you're saying, okay, well, the talent puts you in that conversation, but how the team is composed and actually playing, they're not one of the best teams in the country. I don't think you can say that about SEC basketball this year. The basketball talent is absolutely tops in the country from teams that can beat you in a lot of different ways. Like that Vanderbilt team, undersized, out-rebounded Auburn in this game, right? Yeah. Like that's not something that you expect to happen. And they went in there and they physically beat up Auburn a little bit, particularly in the middle portions of the game.
That's concerning. The offensive rebounds and the second chance points kept Vanderbilt in the game.
Yeah.
So that was another stat that concerned me. But look, when you're the number 1 team in the country, when you're that much better than everybody else, you can afford to lose offensive rebounding like that and still win by 9.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's what we're looking at. I'm sorry, they won by 12. They won by double digits.
Right.
So looking back at it, it wasn't a complete performance, but you got out of there with a win. I think Auburn is beyond needing style points. I don't think they need style points. They just need to stack W's because goal.
They've done all the style stuff, right?
Yeah. It's all done, right?
Just keep winning.
The goal is number 1 overall seed. We keep growing. Think about where we started this season. It was just like Sweet 16 or bust for Auburn, right? Then the non-conference finish, it was like Elite 8 or bust. Right. Then they just kept winning through SEC play, and we're like, Final Four or bust. And then they started doing something truly historic, and you're like, all right, number 1 overall seed and Final Four or bust. That's where you're at. The expectations continue to grow, and I think that you have a chance to really put a stamp on it Saturday in Tuscaloosa. right?
I mean, it'll be a huge statement to walk into Tuscaloosa and get a dub. Now, you won't be the first team to do it this year, but in a game where you're not going to sneak. Like, I feel like Ole Miss maybe snuck up on Bama a little bit. Auburn's not sneaking up on them. I think both teams, despite what they may have said, have had this game circled on the calendar for a while. So it's going to be interesting to see kind of what happens here. But you're right. This is a game of the century kind of matchup right here.
It is
where you've got 1 versus 2. And we'll talk more about that game in a minute. I want to talk a few more things about this Vanderbilt game, though, because you mentioned Chad Baker-Mazar. Coach Pearl did say that Chad, that's part of the reason why he didn't start. I asked him this specifically in this game is because Chad has been hurt.
Yeah.
Right. And so how much that injury is playing into it. And I tweeted this last night, and I need people to hear me out because you and I have talked about Chad and the fan narrative around Chad, whether it is Auburn fans or otherwise, because Auburn fans kind of parrot this, is frustrating about how the referees don't officiate him properly because of his reputation, right? And he's paid the cost for that for no reason whatsoever. Like, ref the game how you're supposed to ref the game, right? Like, forget, well, he flops. And I said this during the game last night. I tweeted this. That's the reason why he flops is because he's not getting the calls he's supposed to get. So he's got to flail and do all this extra stuff to call attention to the fact, they're like, when I'm driving, they're bumping me, bro. Like, so if you're not going to call it straight up, I got to do something extra to get the attention. Like, what do you want this man to do other than hoop and expect for the people who are being paid to officiate the game to officiate it the right way?
Yeah. Yeah. Look, Auburn's been getting beat up all year. They've been getting beat up all year. They've been taking lumps. If they called fouls on Janai Broome the way they should, Janai would be the most fouled player in the history of college basketball.
Yeah, it's ridiculous the whistle that Janai Broome gets right now.
Yeah, right. And so, for Chad Baker, you just got to continue to play through it. I
think he's done a decent job of it. He hadn't flown off the handle this year.
I don't think so.
All the time.
He's clearly matured, Ike.
Yeah.
But you can't let it get to you. You've got to understand that you got a reputation, I guess. And it just kills me that these refs are so blatantly biased at times in terms of how they call things or don't call things. When he got elbowed in the chest in the other game, we're like, wait, what's going on? If he had done that, they would have charged him with a felony.
Right.
Felony assault. When it gets done to him, common foul, if a foul at all. So it's just you can still affect the game. You can't let it get to you. Your team needs you out there. You're not better with Chad Baker-Mazar not on the court. They found that out versus Yale in a tournament last year.
Right.
So Chad Baker, he'll bust out of this. But I am concerned, though, right, about not getting offensive production for him for the amount of minutes that he normally plays. 28 minutes in this one. Janai led with 30 minutes. Miles Kelly had 26 minutes. Denver Jones played 28 minutes. And Chaney Johnson played 28 minutes in this one. They got good contributions for Chris Moore in this game as well, too. 2 of 2 from the field, 4 points. That's not nothing. I'm telling you, when
Chris
you
Moore started the scoring in both halves. He was the first scorer of the game. He was the first scorer coming out of the half. I love that Chris Moore had a wide open 3 and was like, nah, I'm gonna drive in and make this a little bit closer. Took the floater instead of taking the 3, even though it was wide open. He's like, okay, like I can shoot this, but this isn't my shot, and we don't need this shot right now. Let me go get a better one. I loved that from Chris Moore.
Look, Chris, he affects the game in ways that don't always add up on the stat sheet. Right. Out there altering shots and running down play. I mean, look, Chris had a great game. Dylan Cardwell, 2 of 3 from the field, made both of his free throws after an absolutely horrid free throw shooting night. And if you're Auburn, those things helped keep the flow of the game in your favor. Never felt like Auburn was going to lose this one, even when Vanderbilt would make runs. And at the end of the day, they came out with the double-digit win. Todd Pettiford, 3 of 6 from the field, obviously 2 of 5 from 3. Hit some big ones out there. You've got guys who aren't afraid to just take big shots.
Right.
And make big shots. So Auburn 8 steals in this one, 5 blocks. They averaged just over 6 blocks a game so far this season. That leads the country. And you just got to continue to do what you're doing. You've got a lot of tough road games left on this schedule. But if you can get this first one in Alabama, it gives you, man, it puts you miles ahead of the pack. I think going down the stretch. If you can go into Tuscaloosa and get this win, if you lose this one, the SEC is wide open coming down these last like 6 or 7 games. So
for sure.
Florida only 2 games back. They look good.
No, Florida looks like Florida is definitely peaking right now. I don't know what the injury situation is with Condon. He got injured in that last game. They've had a couple of guys go down recently, right? Clayton is back from his injury, of course, because he went crazy against us. And then, Elijah Martin was hurt, and then Condon went down in this last game. So they are a little banged up with guys that play some pretty big minutes for them. But they look good. They look really good right now.
Yeah, I agree. So this you did what you needed to do against Vanderbilt, and the only thing there that concerned me, but now I'm less concerned hearing Bruce talk about Chad maybe being a little banged up. That was it. If he plays his normal game, you win this one by like 20.
Yeah, and he did. And the thing I also like that Chad didn't do is he didn't try to force a bunch of shots. Like he was kind of letting it come to. Now he didn't make any of them, but I didn't feel like most of them were forces. I felt like they were shots that he typically, I think a healthy Chad probably makes a few of those through that contact. So hopefully he has an opportunity to bounce back and play better in this upcoming game. I don't know. They haven't gotten into the details of the injury, but hopefully as time progresses, that is the kind of injury that you just need a little time, and he's playing less minutes, or he's playing different kinds of minutes right now, and hopefully that offense will start to come back for Chad, because again, like you said, his defense has not suffered. He was playing lockdown defense out there, loved what he was doing on the defensive end of the floor. But you already mentioned it, Bama game coming up this weekend. We'll definitely dive into that more during Lobtown, but I do want to talk about that a little bit because there's just a lot of conversation around who Bama is as a team right now. And, Auburn and Alabama tied at the top of the SEC standings right now with 1 loss each. Is this, would you classify this? I know they play again at the end of the year, but is this a must-win game for Auburn? Would you say that?
No, it's not a must-win game. Because it's a road game. You haven't lost a road game yet in the SEC. So no, it's not a must-win game. But boy, do things get tight if you lose it. Again, look at the SEC standings right now. Like there's a lot of room for teams to catch Auburn if you start stacking losses here down the stretch, because the conference is good and is good. I mean, we're talking about a 2-loss Auburn team. You only got 1 loss in conference, but Alabama also only has 1 loss in conference. Right. You lose this game, you're effectively behind them.
Yeah. This is for the lead right now in the conference for sure,
and the country.
Yeah, I don't know. Whoever wins this will be the number one team when the next poll comes out.
Yeah, I don't know if now is when you want to start losing. So it's tough. I'm going to go ahead. I'm usually not on the pregame stuff, but I'll go ahead and make a prediction here. I actually have Alabama winning this one.
Which is not a crazy thought. Bama at home winning is not crazy.
Yeah, there's some things that I'm concerned with Auburn. To me, this is the unstoppable force versus the immovable object, which is Alabama's offense versus Auburn defensively. Auburn defensively is one of the best teams in the country in terms of defensive efficiency rating. If you're Alabama, and if they get hot and you go cold, and you can't slow them, it's going to be a long night. Now, if you're Alabama, and when you go back and you look at their schedule, and you look at the games that they have lost, right? Teams generally hold them around 80 to under 80 points.
In the games they lost, you said?
Yeah, in the games that they lost. So if you're going to give up 90 to Alabama, I don't like Auburn.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I don't think this is a game where you're going to try to go and outscore them on their floor. Like, correct. You need to, you got to
slow them down.
Yeah. You got to make them think about it once or twice and let them sweat a little bit, because I think as those shots stop, and this is what I'll say about what I've looked at with Bama, is when they're not shooting well, they've done a poor job of they try to shoot themselves out of a slump as opposed to going and getting good shots when they're not shooting well. Like their philosophy is, hey man, shoot or shoot, let it fly, right? And if it's not going well for them, I don't know where they go to go get the points. But if it's going well, and we saw this with the Florida game again, people forget Auburn scored 81 in that game and still lost. When it's going well, they can put up 100 easily because they have enough guys out there that can just flat out shoot the basketball.
Yeah, if you're Auburn, in the two games that you've lost, the one you didn't hit 80, and the other one you just barely cleared 80 against Florida at home. So, what's got to happen here is that you've got to limit them at home offensively. Like you somehow you got to hold them to around 80 points, and then you got to hit your averages. Auburn's no slouch either. When you look at, Alabama is the #1 scoring team in the country.
Right.
They have been all year. They've led in that statistic all year long. So, when you look at what they've been able to do offensively, it's been impressive. But if you look at Auburn, you are still the 8th best scoring team in the country.
Right.
But if you both hit your averages, they win.
Correct.
And they've got home court advantage. So you've got to hold them. You got to play a little better defensively than they play offensively, I think, to win this one. And that means, keep minus 10 points for them. High 70s, Auburn wins. Right? High 80s, Alabama wins. One thing I think that I'm going to be watching here, I'm going to be watching to see what kind of impact Aiden Holloway has on this game for Alabama.
Never heard of him.
He's gonna be, they know him, obviously. They know him well. They practiced with him, against him for a whole season. And I think they're going to be a little bit extra motivated to make sure that no matter what the outcome of the game is, he has a terrible day. Right? You want Aiden Holloway to wake up with the poops. You want you want him to have an itch he can't scratch. You know what I mean? You want his dog to pee all over his house before he gets to the arena. You want him to have a terrible day. You want him to have heartburn before bed that night. So Aiden Holloway has played fairly well so far this season. I still don't think that Auburn was the reason he couldn't hit shots last year. But he's in a system where they let it fly. If the emotions are riding high, I like Auburn, right? There are some underlying storylines in this one that I think, again, if you limit Aiden Holloway, what does that do to you if you're Alabama?
Which I mean, you mentioned this, if the averages hold, what you want if you're Auburn is the defensive averages hold, right? Because
he's averaging 11 points a game.
Well, I'm saying Bama as a team, Alabama is surrendering almost 79 points per game. Yeah, Auburn defensively is surrendering just south of 68. So that's what you want. You want your defense to do what it does by average, and Bama's defense to do what it does by average. You win that game.
You win the
10
game.
Points.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, you want the defensive averages to be what prevail at the end of this game. So you keep them south of 70 and you're north of 70, you win.
You win the game. So look, it's going to be, I'll be interested to see how this one is called. I saw a tweet that said that the SEC asked its institutions to invest in basketball.
Mm-hmm.
But the officiating has not risen to the level of the investment that they've asked for from the institutions.
Interesting.
And I got to tell you, I can't agree with that more. You have the biggest stages in college basketball this year, and the officiating is consistently making themselves a part of the game in a way that disgraces how good this conference is.
It's inconsistent. This is something I noted again during the game, right? And this was so people wouldn't think that, oh, I'm just lobbying because I think, I'm an Auburn guy and I want Auburn to get all the calls. Chad Baker-Mazar, second half, driving to the lane, going in for a layup. He gets bumped on his way to the rim. No call, right? Not 2 minutes later, Denver Jones driving to the rim, gets bumped on his way to the lane. It's a personal foul. Those are both Auburn players. It was both the same kind of foul. It was officiated differently on that play. And that's the infuriating thing. If you're watching the game, you're like, can y'all at least let us know what a foul is this game, so that if it were a close game, I know what I'm allowed to do and what I'm not allowed to do. They throw the ball over the top to Janai Broome, and he gets smacked in the head twice. He missed the first one, when he got hit. He gets the rebound. He missed a second when he got hit on his arm, but he got it back and he made it again. Later in the same game, he gets a foul call on the exact same kind of play. I'm like, yo, be consistent, bro.
Yeah.
That's all I'm at. Like, consistency. I'm not asking for it to be in the favor of Auburn. If it's a foul, let it be a foul the entirety of the game. It makes it so difficult if you're a player to know how to play if the referee is going to be different with how they call fouls play to play. It's just not fair.
Yeah. Look, again, if you're Auburn, you have to be prepared for the home cooking that's going to come. You cannot lose your cool in this one. Bama's going to get calls. I'm telling you right now, Bama's going to get calls in this game
for sure.
And if you're Auburn, you can't let that rattle you. You're going to have to play your best in game, I think, to win this one. I'm
begging the officials not to look at Mark Sears' hair flopping and actually realize whether or not he's being fouled. Don't look at don't react to the hair. His hair starts doing this, and they like, oh, somebody had to push.
Yeah.
It's not a foul.
Yeah, it's not a foul. It's not a foul. As a matter of fact, get a haircut, young man. As far as I'm concerned.
I guarantee you, Mark Sears with a temp fade would not get 80% of the foul calls he gets.
That's stupid. So, look, man, this is the game of the century, I think, in college basketball, and it's rare. How many times have Duke and North Carolina played as number one? Do we know?
I don't know.
I don't know how many times that's happened, in a rivalry.
It's probably a lot that they've been both like top 10, but I don't know how often it's been 1 and 2. So that's definitely something to take a look at. We'll talk a little bit more about this rivalry on the other side of the break. We're going to get into your fan comments as well, because we're going to answer the question that is here for the title of the video. Has this become the premier rivalry in college sports, Auburn versus Alabama? We'll get into this on the other side. You are watching the Midweek Report. This edition of the War Report is brought to you by our generous sponsors. The Opelika Rage Room in Opelika, Alabama. The Rage Room is a place where anger and stress find their ultimate release. Call or text 334-777-6688 to set up a session today, or check them out online at opelikaRageroom.com. Golden's Cast Iron. Whether you work out, grill out, or chill out, you deserve the best life possible, and Golden's Cast Iron is here to provide the tools to help you do it. Check them out at goldenscastiron.com.
Midweek Report brought to you by our friends at the Rage Room. Visit them in Opelika at 1510 2nd Ave. And if you're in the Birmingham area, 2616 7th Ave South, Rage Room bringing you guys healthy outlets to get that rage out. I don't know. I might have to visit them after the game on Saturday. We'll see. Hopefully I don't. If you love what we're doing here, hit that join button. $5.99 a month, guys. Helps keep us on the road. The tournament is coming. We're going to be in Nashville. We're booked for Nashville for the SEC tournament. And hopefully, we're headed to either Lexington or Raleigh for the first round of the NCAA tournament. I am not going to Seattle, bro. I'm not doing it. But just in case I change my mind, sign up as a member because those flights aren't cheap. Also, you can give the gift of the War Report by hitting that gifted membership button. We appreciate you guys for helping us grow our Green Name Gang. And that way, this segment of the War Report is also brought to you by our friends at Underdog Sports. New customers get deposit and get up to $1,000 in bonus cash. All you got to do is pick higher or lower on 2 players on your entry, and you have a chance to win big-time money with our friends at Underdog Sports. Guys, baseball is here. The tournament is going to be wild. You can win big with Underdog Sports. We appreciate them for sponsoring the War Report. And last but certainly not least, again, our friends at the Rogue Shop. Visit rogueshop.com and use code REPORT to get 15% off your Rogue Shop order. Pain, sleep, stress, anxiety, whatever ails you in life. Bammers, the Rogue Shop has you covered. Stay cool with our friends at the Rogue Shop.
Yes, indeed. And our friends are here in the comments section, contributing to the great conversation we have going on. I'll start it out with D. Lev, who says, this team has been playing a gauntlet of a schedule from the jump. They're a little banged up and fatigued. Coach Pearl actually talked about this as well in the post game.
He said this about Denver after the Florida game.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think we just had a tough stretch, man. He's tired. It happens. It's a long grind. You got 30 games that you have to play, and you've won almost all of them. And eventually it just kind of catches up with you. And it just happened to be against the number 6 team in the country. Now the number 3 team in the country. Is it one? Is it one?
Florida,
2,
yeah.
3?
Florida's 3, yeah.
Right yeah. 1, 2, 3.
That actually of the rankings, that's the one that actually shocked me a little bit. I think maybe the quality of the win is what gets it there, and then like the
Duke lost though. Duke lost.
Yeah, they did, but I was surprised that they dropped below Florida. Like I'm not surprised that Duke dropped. I was surprised they dropped below Florida. I thought they were going to drop below Bama. I was surprised they dropped below Florida.
Yeah, and to be clear here, it looks like the AP has Duke 3 and Florida 3, so they're tied in points. The coaches jumped Florida over Duke, and
the coaches have Bama as number 1, which is
the coaches are ridiculous. Yeah, Nate Oates gets a vote. He voted for his own team, obviously. But it's weird. Like it looks like Auburn got 16 first place votes, and Alabama got 15 first place votes.
Crazy.
But yet somehow Alabama ended up 1. I don't know. It's just weird. But look, it just doesn't matter because it's all going to be adjudicated on the court anyway.
Yep.
Saturday we'll prove who deserves that spot.
As I said, it's no need to complain about it. Just go out there and make it happen on the court, and what happens happens. Lawrence jumps in and says, we do seem to get complacent when we get a big lead. Keep your foot on the gas going forward.
Yeah, I'm not sure that it's always complacency. I think you're trying to manage the game. You're also trying to sub so that you're fresh down the stretch. And this is something that I think gets overlooked by a lot of fans. They're like, why wasn't so-and-so in the game? Well, you need them at the end, right? And so you have to trust your bench to do the job while your starters are getting a rest so that you can have your run when it matters the most, because these teams in this league this year, they're not going away in the last 6 minutes.
Well, I think people forget that unlike football, which it happens in football, like momentum is a thing in football, and usually that carries much longer in football. But basketball, and people say this all the time, is a game of runs. One team makes a run, then the other team comes back and they make a run, and you have to figure out how to shorten the length of the other team's run as much as you can. You want your run to be longer than theirs and have more of them throughout the game. So, yeah, I don't know that it's necessarily complacency. It's just it's a new group of guys that are out there, and they've got to get into the flow of the game. And maybe the other team hasn't subbed at the same time, so they've got more guys that are into that flow already. It happens, but the best teams find ways to absorb those runs and then go on a run of their own. That's what Auburn did against Vanderbilt.
Yeah, this is why Auburn defensively, I think, is so good, because you don't lose anything defensively, I think, when this team subs. I think you do lose something offensively
for sure.
Yeah, right. Sure. But defensively, they may not score as much, but they're just as likely to not let you score. And that's what makes them so dangerous. So against Vandy yesterday, there were some interesting stats here. You got 29 points from your bench, which is excellent. But Auburn and Vanderbilt both scored 40 points in the paint. Both teams had exactly 40 points in the paint. However, Vandy had 40 points in the paint because you kept giving up damn second chance points.
Right.
In those 16 offensive rebounds that you gave up to the Vanderbilt. So look, I don't think it's that they take their foot off the gas. It's just that the second unit just doesn't shoot as lights out, maybe, as the first unit does.
Your best 3-point shooters on the team, Miles Kelly and Denver Jones and Chad Baker-Mazara, right? Like, so you go to the bench, you've only got one kind of dead-eye shooter out there in Tahad, who's been struck and I'm not putting this on Tahad, but a lot of the second unit struggles offensively is because Tahad is not shooting as well right now. If Tahad was still over 40% from 3, and doing what he had been doing, that second unit scores more points than they have. But like, you just don't have scores in that second unit like you had earlier in the year. Again, because Tahad was kind of leading that second unit in that way. So, but I think the alternative is guys playing too many minutes, and they'll probably shorten the rotation as you get into some of this tournament stuff. But you need your bench to have productivity so that you're not gassed in tournaments. That's the reason they build the team this way. It's like, I want to be able to play 8 and 9 guys. So when we're playing back-to-back nights, if I had to play Janai Broome 38 minutes this last game, I need to be able to rely on Turtle to at least give me 10 to 15 in the next one.
Yeah. Another interesting stat. Auburn had one fast break point somehow against Vanderbilt. One.
Yeah, it was a free throw.
Yeah.
It was, I believe.
Might as well be no fast break points, right?
Was it Chaney Johnson?
I believe it was on an and one. Yeah.
It was Chaney Johnson on the one he goes to try to dunk and he gets fouled. He makes one of the two. That's what happened.
Yep. That was the only fast break point of the game.
And that's been a thing for this team, is they don't generate a lot of live ball turnovers this year, so they're not getting a lot of transition buckets. They're playing great defense and forcing bad shots, but when you're not rebounding well, it makes it more difficult for you because you're not able to get out and run, because you're not getting live ball turnovers. You're not able to get out and run if you're not getting defensive rebounds at a high rate as well. So the fast break situation has been a mystery for this Auburn team so far this year. TK jumps in and says, finishing at the rim is becoming a thing over the last several games for us in general. I agree with this, particularly Janai Broome. He just does not have the lift, and those like weird angle bank shots, he's not making them right now. He missed, like, one of them was a lob, and he tried to catch it with one hand and dunk it. I think the pass could have been a little bit better. But the other layup that he missed right after that, he was frustrated with himself. If you go back and watch, he was like clearly frustrated with himself for missing that layup. But that's been a thing for him these last couple of games.
I had about 3 buckets, where it were shots he normally hits, point blank shots that just, they rattled around the rim and then came out. So yeah, I mean, he was 6 of 16 from the field, probably should have been like 9 of 16 from the field.
Right.
In this one, but I'm not too concerned about that. He didn't hit a 3 in this one either.
Yeah. He only took 1 or 2. I think he took 2. Oh, he took 3. I remember the early one that he took in. Oh no, he took 2 of in the second half. He took 1 in the first half, 2 in the second. That's right. Yeah. Princess says, nah, Vandy out rebounded Tennessee and Kentucky at the Ghost Gym. Which is true. Look, this Vanderbilt team, and they competed on the boards with Florida, right? So though they're undersized, they do a good job of competing physically for boards, and they're just quick to get to loose balls, right? Like, they just have a quick team that goes out there and competes for the loose ball. So that's been their brand, and they were true to that. What I loved about Auburn in the second half of that game, though, is they limited the turnovers, which is really kind of how Vandy juices their offense, and they just didn't give them any juice.
Yeah.
Make Auburn great again said Chaney had a great game, best game of the year for him. We need that Chaney the rest of the year.
9 of 10 Chaney, yeah, I'd agree.
Yeah, I mean, but this is the thing. Chaney has one of these games every now and then, and he'll have 1 or 2 of them in a row, and then it'll be like, really, the thing for Chaney Johnson is staying out of foul trouble, because Chaney shoots a good percentage pretty much every game. Like, there's very few games where he shoots the ball 5 or 6 times and he's not making shots because he takes such high percentage shots. It's staying out of foul trouble so he can continue to be in the rhythm of the game. He had 1 foul in this game, and that was in the last minute of the game. For whatever reason, he reached in on a dude that was on the pause in the backcourt. I have no idea why he had that foul, but he could have gone through an entirety of the game with 0 personal fouls. And I was just like, he just had to have 1. For some reason. So it's like he was like, man, I'm gonna break my streak. I gotta have a foul in the game. C. Harbin says Denver Jones has been great defending smaller, quicker guards this season. And listen, the small, quick guards is definitely what Bama has, so he's gonna need another one of those. So we will see what happens in this game. All right, let's get into this conversation, Mike. Auburn, Alabama, number 1 versus number 2. Been a good game, really, the last 5 seasons, right? Like, it's not like just the ranking makes this like a monumental first time in SEC history that 2 SEC teams are ranked and facing each other 1 and 2. Never happened before in the history of the Southeastern Conference in basketball has the number 1 team faced the number 2 team in a game. And it's happening Auburn versus Alabama. The question is this now the biggest rivalry in college basketball?
Yes.
Why?
You have, like, first of all, the SEC is the best conference in college basketball. The investment now with NIL, I think the money's always been there. But now if you're telling them they can spend it openly, I think you're going to see programs in this conference continue to improve. Now, Auburn and Alabama, obviously, a lot of pride in both these programs outside of football as well, too. But, you know, what Bruce Pearl has done, bringing the competitiveness back to this rivalry, has been pretty amazing. So, you know, when you think about what this means, still a state without a professional sports team. Auburn and Alabama is it.
Yeah.
College basketball is growing in the state. And when you go to Neville and you see a packed out arena, game after game after game, when you try to get a ticket to Auburn, Kentucky, or Auburn, Tennessee, or Auburn, Florida, and those ticket prices are in the hundreds, if not the thousands for some of them, I think that's what marks the best rivalry. I can't get a ticket to UNC Duke back in the day.
Yeah.
Good luck with that. That's where Auburn and Alabama are at right now. Coleman is going to be packed. Auburn fans are going to travel. Now, their arena is a little oversized, and they regularly don't fill it, so that we're clear. However,
more space for Auburn fans to get in there.
Oh, yeah, but they're going to buy up those extra seats for this one. So, yeah, I do think that this is a new day and age. The ACC might be the worst conference in basketball. Matter of fact, I'm not going to say might. They are. They are the worst conference in basketball. This is why I'm not big on. That's why all the Duke love, I don't really get.
Yeah.
Look,
normally I'm all in favor of Duke.
Right? Yes, you got the win over Auburn in a game that was horribly officiated at home. Barely by 6 points. But they might be the most untested team in the top 10 right now. And you're living on name.
Yeah.
So people may not be used to, again, Auburn and Alabama more new bloods than blue bloods. But what this game has started to mean, and then you get all the little side quest storylines like Aiden Holloway left Auburn and went to Alabama.
Don't know him.
You know, Janai Broome vying for National Player of the Year. You know, Darius Philon just having a great year.
LeBaron
Philon, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And I just think that there's so many great players now. You've got 2 of the best coaches in the game, and you've got the investment. You've got the fan bases. This is, you know, going to a Duke home basketball game used to be on my bucket list. It's like a bucket list item.
Yeah.
That's how rich the tradition is there. And you know, I get it. They don't know what it's like to come to an Iron Bowl in football. Because it's never, I mean, Auburn and let me tell you this. This is I think this is the dichotomy between the 2 universities. You know, at the end of the day, Auburn and Alabama can raise the level of interest in basketball to a level that Duke football will never get to.
Truth. And the reason why I'm going to agree with you, and I know I understand this is a well, it is right now type of thing vibe, because I get historically, yeah, it's not a contest historically. I think the animosity that these 2 fan bases have for one another, coupled with the magnitude of what the actual product on the field / implications of the game have made it that for now and the foreseeable future. Because though Duke and Carolina fans hate each other in basketball, they don't hate each other the way Auburn and Alabama fans hate each other in every single sport. It does not matter what the sport is. When these two teams play each other, there is hatred in that game.
That's a fact.
And now that the basketball quality has raised to a national product level, you pour that hatred into it. And to me, it surpasses what you can have for just the hatred in this one sport. Y'all don't like each other in these other sports because no, it's pure hatred. It's different.
Yeah.
Because that hatred bubbles over from other stuff, and now the stakes are higher. So when you pour that hatred onto these stakes, to me, it makes it the best. It makes it the best rivalry.
Yeah, look, the fan bases, the emotional investment from the fan bases is what makes a sports rivalry good.
Correct.
Right? But when those teams' level of play rises to the investment of the fans emotionally, then you've got the best rivalry in sports. And that's what I think that we have here. We have two teams at the absolute pinnacle of college basketball with fan bases who already hated everything about each other.
Right.
We wish nothing but bad things for Alabama in every sport.
Yeah.
I do not root for you to win. I loathe you.
Auburn fans got mad at an Auburn player for saying, hey, man, hey, I wish them the best of luck going forward. It was like, get this dude out of here. Zep, what are you talking about?
You were never one of us. You're not like us. That's a fact. We got mad at him for showing sportsmanship. that
like, what?
A
good sport?
Yeah. No, bro. And again, Zep got a lot of heat for that.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, like, there were people who were just like, oh, you gotta know Zep. That's just who he is. No. Screw that, Zep.
Bro, folks no. Like, nah, I'm not hearing that. What are you talking about?
No. Like, listen, you could say that to your Bama player friends.
Yeah, dap them up in the line when you're leaving the court and be like, hey, man, good luck and keep that moving. But when you in this press conference, it's hate, bro.
Hey, hate. I love the you over the years, like, you listen to Mark Ingram and these guys who ended up on teams with other like Auburn players, and they talk about, hey, I got mad respect for you as an athlete, but as far as our schools are concerned, no. After that after the Iron Bowl 2013, I think Mark Ingram had to wear like an Auburn jersey or something. Chet, help me out. As one of the players famously had lost a bet.
It was
who was it?
It was the quarterback. Whatchamacallit had to do that at one point in time, and because he went out there with like a trophy because they won the national championship. Hurts had to do that after they lost. Hurts had to do that.
Yeah, there was another one though. It wasn't a quarterback where like he played for Carolina. He famously had to put on an Auburn jersey after an Auburn win against Alabama.
And, you're talking about like after their playing days, like he was in the NFL when
yes. They were in the NFL. Gotcha. Yeah, and so these guys, they hate each other. There's no respect,
right?
And so for Zep to say that showed that you fundamentally do not understand the roots of this rivalry, or you would never go into the media and say something that foolish. And not expect a bunch of backlash. No, we're not taking it easy on you, Zep. When they win, we gotta hear it.
Yeah. Yeah, man, you have made the next few months of my life unbearable because we lost this game. Yeah.
Yeah, don't ever say no dumb shit like that in the media ever again. That was crazy. All right, so yeah, I'm like, it's all love. I'm rooting for them. No, you're not rooting for them. If we're winning, we don't want them to win. We never want them to win. So, yeah, I get it, the nice guy thing. But again, that tells me that to some extent, you never really bought into the rivalry.
Yeah, and that doesn't mean he didn't love Auburn. He absolutely loves Auburn.
I'm not saying that he didn't love Auburn. I'm saying he didn't buy
That's
into
the
the
thing
rivalry.
I think I loved the most about Jabari Smith. Like when the first game he played versus Bama, his check-in was like, I forgot what it said, but it was like derogatory. He was like, "We're at the toilet" or something like that. Like, I was like, "Oh yeah," he off rip. He was like, "Yo, yeah, we hate them, and I'm all about this hate life."
Yeah,
I love that about Jabari. 1 year he was in here and he embraced the hate immediately.
Yeah,
and I'm wondering how much some of these new guys that this will be their first time playing against them. Really it's only Miles Kelly and Tahad that are really going to be new to this. Like you'll get Turtle some minutes, but like as far as guys that play major minutes, it's only going to be Miles and Tahad. How much they embrace or understand the level of hatred that this rivalry produces, and they buy into that.
Facts.
So we'll see. Here's another question I have for you, though. Here's another question I have for you, because again, I would have argued Auburn versus Alabama in football, best college rivalry. Period. Right. The rivalry amongst these fan bases, I think, is now easily the most toxic rivalry because of all of the things. Has the Auburn versus Alabama basketball rivalry surpassed the Auburn versus Alabama football rivalry at this point in time?
Ooh. No, because no matter how well these two teams do at basketball, they will always be football schools. And we know this because I'm telling you, I love everybody on this live cast. But y'all would rather watch a video of which hand Hugh Freeze uses to wipe after he poops than sometimes an Auburn basketball win.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, the interest it's never risen to the level, right, that football will generate in a losing season. It's just not there. Like, let me ask you this. You remember the Texas A&M game a few years ago where Cadillac was coaching, and it was like the Super Bowl of like 3-win teams?
Right.
Do you ever think there would be a Auburn basketball team with a losing record, not bound for the postseason, that would have a packed out stadium like that for any game?
The only reason that could potentially happen is if like the number one team in the country was coming to play. It wouldn't be another losing team. No, like there would be no situation where both teams are losing teams and you're in Neville Arena and it's packed. Wouldn't happen.
Yeah, it's about the recency, I think, of both teams becoming good and staying good for as long as they've been good. That's why it hasn't surpassed. I mean, maybe we can have this conversation again in another 10 years but in football, it's been lopsided.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, like, that Iron Bowl will be packed no matter how bad Auburn is.
Yeah.
And I just don't think we can say the same for basketball. And that's the only reason I'll say it has not surpassed it. So, it just is what it is. There's just not enough history of winning there. And it just hasn't been that deep. We went to Auburn, right? What Auburn versus Alabama basketball game do you remember from the time we were in school in the early 2000s? Not a one, Ike. I don't even remember going to the games.
Yeah. I mean, I went to them, but yeah, they weren't memorable situations.
Like Auburn made a Sweet 16 while we were in school. And we still barely gave a damn about that. So,
I'm a basketball guy, so I always paid attention to it. But by and large, like you said, the fan base was not as charged around that. It just wasn't the same.
That's when Marquise was there on that team, on that 2003 team.
Yeah.
And they lost by I think 2 or 3 points to eventual national champion Syracuse. Carmelo Anthony was on that squad. He had a pretty good NBA career. But when you look at it long term, it just hasn't been good long enough for us to be able to say that it's truly surpassed it. Now, again, in 10 more years of this, what we're looking at here, and then maybe we can have this conversation again. But right now, I would say, no, it has not come close.
Cool. All right. Well, before we get out of here, let's get back over here into this comment section a little bit because people are weighing in on this. This is kind of going back a minute, but Prentice says, I'm telling you, man, Chaney is going to be the biggest contributor in the tournament. Can we see tournament Chaney similar to how we saw tournament Trey, big game Trey? Coming in during this year? I'd love to see that. I'd love to see Chaney Johnson go crazy in the SEC and NCAA tournament.
Agreed.
TK says, yeah, this year right now doesn't outweigh decades of blue blood rivalry, though. Saying
there you go.
UNC and Duke and Carolina is still preeminent. Devin says it might be this year, but I'm not sure it will ever be on Duke and Carolina's level.
Look, man, if time is the thing that they need to catch up, I'm not sure time is the thing that they need to catch up anymore. I think championships might do it, though. Right? Final Fours will do it. SEC championships will do it. From both these schools. I think that's what makes it, Duke and UNC had their fair share of ACC championships.
Yeah, and that's what Auburn and Alabama have. These two teams have dominated this conference for the last 5 years.
Yeah. And so, again, in 10 years, we could have this conversation. And I think, but right now, I do think that this game on Saturday means more than any Duke UNC game we've seen over the last few years.
For the historical fact here, Wizard Dragon says Duke and UNC have faced each other twice as 1 and 2.
I did see that. I did look that up while we were talking.
2 times. So already on the heels of that, as far as the significance of the game. Devin says, sorry, Ike, that's not true. They hate each other in every sport. As someone who follows UNC sports, I can attest to that. They wish nothing but failure on each other all the time.
Sure. Yeah, but they don't care about football.
Yeah, I was about to say, I wishing again, I think you have to look at the passion of the fan bases when it comes to that sort of thing. Yes, you wish, I don't want them to succeed. Are they showing up in droves to that game and pouring that hatred into that, whatever the playing field is? When Auburn baseball plays Bama baseball, that's one of the best attended games of the year. Auburn softball versus Bama softball, one of the best attended games of the year.
Yeah.
The gym meets Auburn versus Bama, best attended meets of
gymnastics.
The hatred between these two schools is not matched on. And again, I'm not saying that they want each other to succeed outside of basketball. I'm saying the hatred is not comparable, in my opinion. Maybe I have blinders on because I live in this rivalry. I don't see that hatred spill over into the playing surfaces in that same way.
Yeah. Look, Devin, we're the best haters over here. We hate the best.
Our hatred is not matched. How many trees got poisoned up there in Tobacco Road? Somebody tell me that. Huh?
How many people got shot after a UNC Duke game? Because it's happened multiple times after Iron Bowls.
Oh, man.
You ain't shooting, you ain't trying.
All right. Oh, shoot, man. We got to get out of here.
Wait.
But I say before we leave, though, just want to mention this because you have a pod that is up about this right now. And I want to make sure that we throw it out here and we talk about DJ Durkin got paid.
He got paid. I will say this. I won't go in depth, but I will tell you this was he is now the second highest paid assistant in the country. Second to only Penn State's Jim Knowles, who I think just left Ohio State and went to Penn State. Right. And look, this might be coach in waiting money.
It's not crazy to think that
it might be coach in waiting money.
What I wanted to compare this to, honestly, was the unfortunate reality is that this is feeling very Gus Malzahn-ish right now, where the defensive coordinator is being paid a lot of money to not leave because he's kind of the glue of the success of the program right now. Even though they haven't seen a lot of success on the field, what limited success that you're seeing is the production on the defensive side right now from an offensive-minded coach. And you're paying your defensive coordinator a lot of money to not lose that momentum while you're trying to figure the offense out.
Well, the reports were also that Ohio State was going after Durkin hard. And so, you know, to make sure that you kept him in the fold, you know, you stepped up to the plate and you did the only thing that you could do. And that was pay the man to stay here, because Auburn, if you're Auburn, you just can't afford to lose such an important piece at this point. So I have no issue with what they're paying him. I think that, you know, if we're going to pay athletes all these ridiculous numbers, you know, to play football at the college level, then pay your defensive coordinator, man, to coach him. And that's that, right? Durkin's done a good job. Reports from the players have been overwhelmingly positive. He runs an organized practice. He's meticulous, you know, in his preparation, and I think that was reflected in the results that we saw on the field for Auburn defensively in 2024. Roll that into 2025, and it buys you some more time to figure out whatever the hell you're doing offensively. Yeah. So, you know, without DJ Durkin, Auburn may be a 3-win team last year out down that hill. It would have been really rough. It would have been rough. So, and Hugh Freeze, look, man, notch that one for Hugh Freeze. You hired him. You went out and got him, and his successes are your successes.
Yeah, for sure.
So, yeah, I thought that Durkin has been Freeze's best hire since he's been on the Plains. I think the results bear that out. We'll continue to have this conversation, but 2.5 mil doesn't seem like.
And let's be clear, they could afford that because they lost Kelly when he went and took a head coaching job, and then they lost names escaping my mind, linebackers coach Josh Aldridge, right? And the guys that they hired to replace him, they didn't hire at the same salary. So I don't know that Auburn's coaching salaries went up a lot with giving DJ Durkin more money, because the guys that you replaced, the two that you lost with Kelly and Aldridge, didn't come in for the same dollar amount that Kelly and Aldridge had. So because you gave a little bit less money at these two position groups, you could afford to give him, Durkin, that money plus a little bit more and not raise your overall salaries. It's a smart move. Somebody in one of the comments was like, said something about how Durkin got all this money, but then, you know, they shafted Bruce Pearl on the new arena, and I'm like, or new basketball facility. I'm like, I don't know that those two pots were in the same thing. So, yeah, I think DJ Durkin got what he needed to get in this situation, because he was a co-defensive coordinator and all that kind of stuff last year on his staff. It's his defense. Let him go out there and run it. And he's doing an amazing job of treating this side of the football like it's his own team and making sure that they're going to be as good as they can possibly be while he's there coaching.
Yeah, and so that we're clear, right? Like, there was money for the facilities that Pearl wanted, right? But when at the advent of NIL, he said, I'd rather have that money in NIL than these new facilities. So that's what he got. Right. And in a perfect world, you get both. But we all know it's still kind of political, and there are agendas, and, you know, Auburn's got a new scoreboard project going on. And ultimately,
and that's where I think the money went, to that scoreboard.
Yeah, the scoreboard. Yeah. Right. And so is the North End Zone scoreboard that they're replacing. And I mean, and so the first one was like, what, a $30 million project? This one's like a $12 million project. You know, every $500,000 that goes out the door is some money that they have to raise. And they're getting some things. The basketball offices are getting renovated. If you've never been to the second floor of Neville, the men and the women share that office space. Right. And after this season, the women are moving to the other side of Neville where volleyball is, and the men are getting all of those offices up there. So, you know, they're getting some things. You can't get everything that you want, I think, but I do agree, man. When you go into the practice facility, it is a little dated, and, like, you know, I'm not sure I love where it is. So I'm not sure if he was wanting a whole separate facility or if he just wanted them to go in and renovate it, because their conference room overlooks that practice floor.
Yeah, I think it's so right now, I think what they're going to do is settle for renovations rather than at their own facility. The issue becomes practice, right? Because when volleyball and basketball share the same space, they also have to share practice in that space.
Yes.
So, going and getting it's difficult when you're like, all right, we need to go get some shots up, but there's no gym because volleyball's out there practicing or women's basketball is over there practicing. So, yeah, and then plus they use Neville for events, so it's like it's just there's always stuff going on in there, so it makes it very difficult to just get time out there. So that's the issue that is going on. But yeah, I don't think DJ Durkin's contract had anything to do with that. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I don't think those two things have a link. So look, it's there now. The NIL is going to be taken over by the universities. And this is something that we'll talk about in future shows. The collectives may be absorbed. It'll be interesting to see where that money goes because, the donors, they were all giving to the fundraising arm of the athletic department. Yeah, right. Tigers Unlimited. And that, a lot of that money, generally the athletics department has financially is operated as an independent entity from the university. But it raises a lot of questions about where we're going with college athletics and how money is going to be used, Ike, because when you look at it now, if the universities are taking over the NIL portion, I don't know how you separate the contract, which is the athletic scholarship, from the money that you're giving the athlete.
Yeah.
But I tell you what, if I lock you in, no, sir, you are not just up and transferring whenever the hell you want. So it might rein in a lot of the portal activity that we're seeing. Do we allow multi-year contracts? Like, how are they going to hold this together? I think that's an interesting conversation that we're going to have after the spring when this stuff starts to come about. What are universities doing and who's controlling where that money is going? Right. Because
it also changed the conversation around NCAA oversight, which had been largely separated from this conversation because of the way NIL progressed. But if it comes back to the university level, the oversight of you give the NCAA some different teeth now, but it's going to be about the guardrails that are around it that determine how much they get involved in that conversation. The NCAA has traditionally been an awful organization, so hopefully them getting involved in this is not going to make this even worse than what it was before.
Agreed.
All right, last two comments here before we leave. Devin says Miles Kelly just seems like a hater. I think he'll buy in. I am all for that. I think he's a hooper, right? And so the competitive nature of being a hooper is going to just be like, all right, we hate them, cool. I don't like them, and F them just because they on the other side. And then James Barnett says, fellas, we may see 1 versus 2 with Bama and Auburn twice this season. James, you could see it 3 times this season, honestly, depending upon how these two teams finish the regular season. Because if the only other L that Bama takes is this one this Saturday to Auburn, and Auburn continues winning, Bama may stay right there on the 2 line.
Yeah.
And then the last game of the year back in Neville Arena will be 1 versus 2 again.
Again, that would be crazy.
Which would make them the number 1 and number 2 seed for the SEC championship. And if they win all the way through, you could see a 1 versus 2 again in the SEC championship. It could be 3 times in the same year.
If they split this, it's possible that we see Auburn and Alabama as both as 1 seeds in the NCAA tournament as well.
For sure.
Yeah.
Right. Which means that you could theoretically see this game 4 times this year.
Yeah, some of the guys who project tournaments, they're saying that right now there are 3 SEC teams as 1 seeds.
Auburn, Florida, and Bama.
Yeah, it sounds crazy. I hate it for whoever gets the 3rd overall seed because you're going out west, buddy. It's gonna be a long trip for you. So you want to stay in those top 2 number 1 seeds, but it could put so many good, potential, compelling storylines coming for basketball. I can't wait for it. We're gonna have a good time in Nashville. Auburn is definitely not going to play in the first few days, so they won't play until the quarterfinals, which is Friday. And the number 1 seed is the first game on Friday at noon. So we'll see what they do there. Florida might be out for some revenge. Auburn might be out for a certain type of revenge. Alabama got bounced by what was Mississippi State last year. There's so much I think that's going to be fun to watch in this SEC tournament. If you're Auburn, man, taking the regular season and the SEC tournament would be quite the run headed into the NCAA tournament.
For sure. For sure. All right, well, let's get out of here, man. Tell the people ways they can support the channel and support the people that support the channel.
First and foremost, I want to thank our title sponsor, The Rage Room. Visit them if you're in the Opelika area, 1510 2nd Ave. And if you're in Birmingham, 2616 7th Ave South. Great partners of the War Report. We appreciate them for sponsoring this segment. As always, sign up as a member. $5.99 a month will get you there. Hit that join button, select patron, and enjoy the benefits. Also, our friends at Underdog Sports, new customer deposit and get up to $1,000 in bonus cash. Just pick higher or lower on 2 or more players for your entry, and you have a chance to win big. Underdog Sports giving you a chance to enjoy the NCAA tournament in a different kind of way while you make some money this March. Our friends at Vintage 2298 serving you your fine dining needs. If you're in the Auburn-Opelika area, you're looking for a fine dining experience, Vintage 2298 has you covered. Visit them at 2298 East University Drive in Auburn, Alabama. And our friends at the Rogue Shop, rogueshop.com. Use code REPORT to get 15% off that Rogue Shop order. Pain, sleep, stress, anxiety, whatever ails you in life, the Rogue Shop has something that has you covered. Nice little note going in for everybody who uses that code REPORT at the Rogue Shop. We appreciate them for sponsoring this segment. Check us out on podcasts, every single podcast network. The War Report is there, bringing you lots of great audio-only content. Auburn Express, Up-Tempo, College Loop, Just a Sec, and our guys over at the Sooner Spotlight, covering the SEC in a great way. So whether it's Apple, Spotify, Amazon, again, wherever you listen to podcasts, hit that subscribe button, turn on automatic downloads. Guys, this helps us so much. No matter when you go back to listen to the episode, if that thing downloads to your device, it moves us forward in the podcast rankings. We appreciate you guys for your support over there.
Yes, indeed. Before you get out of here, like the video, subscribe to the channel. We'll be back with more content tomorrow on the Auburn Express. Friday, I will have my Lobtown preview of the Auburn versus Alabama game. I will be making the trip to the toilet to watch that game. So I will see those of you who will be down there in Turd Town. But we are out of here, man. Until the next time, and as always, War Eagle.